Lucia's hands trembled as she stood in Gabriel Lombardi's marble foyer, her pregnant belly pressing against her worn uniform. The most dangerous man in New York City circled her slowly, his steel gray eyes fixed on something at her throat. "Where did you get that necklace?" His voice was deadly quiet. Her fingers flew to the delicate gold chain, the only piece of jewelry she owned, the only thing she had from that night 6 months ago. The night that changed everything. The night she'd spent with a stranger in a hotel bar, never knowing he was the Gabriel Lombardi. The man whose name made grown men weep. "Asked you a question, Lucia." He stepped closer, and she could smell his expensive cologne, see the vein pulsing in his jaw. "That necklace? I gave it to someone once. Someone I've been searching for." Her heart stopped. The baby kicked hard against her ribs, as if sensing her panic. "Answer me," he whispered, his hand reaching toward her throat. "Who are you really?" 3 hours earlier, Lucia Fernandez had been on her knees scrubbing the bathroom floor of a penthouse in Manhattan's Upper East Side, wondering how much longer she could hide her pregnancy. At 4 months, her uniform was getting tight, and the morning sickness still hit her at the worst moments. "Lucia, get in here." Mrs. Backer's shrill voice echoed through the apartment. She pushed herself up slowly, one hand supporting her lower back. The wealthy widow stood in the living room, her face twisted with disgust as she pointed at Lucia's midsection. "You're pregnant." It wasn't a question. "How dare you come into my home in this condition? What kind of example does this set?" Lucia's throat tightened. "Mrs. Backer, I can still work. I need this job." "You're fired. Get out now." The older woman's voice was ice cold. "I won't have an unwed mother working in my home. It's disgraceful." 20 minutes later, Lucia stood on the sidewalk with her small bag of cleaning supplies, trying not to cry. She was 4 months pregnant, alone, and now jobless. Her studio apartment in the Bronx was already 2 weeks behind on rent. Her mother's medical bills from her cancer treatment last year had drained every penny of savings. She touched the necklace at her throat, a delicate gold chain with a tiny compass pendant. The man from that night had left it on the nightstand with a note. "So you can always find your way back to me." She'd thought it was just a line, something charming that stranger said. She never expected to see him again. She never expected to be carrying his child. Her phone buzzed, an unknown number. "Hello, is this Lucia Fernandez?" A woman's crisp voice. "I'm calling from Lombardi Enterprises. We're looking for a live-in housekeeper for Mr. Lombardi's residence. Your name came highly recommended. Are you available for an immediate interview?" Lucia's breath caught. Lombardi. She knew that name. Everyone in New York did. Gabriel Lombardi, the man who owned half the city, legal and otherwise. Rumors swirled about his business dealings, but nobody dared investigate too closely. Yes. Yes, I'm available." "Excellent. A car will pick you up in 30 minutes. Text me your location." The black SUV that arrived was worth more than Lucia would earn in 5 years. The driver, a massive man with a scar across his cheek, said nothing as he opened the door for her. She slid into leather seats softer than her mattress. They drove through Manhattan, past the glittering towers, until they reached a private street in Tribeca. The building was modern glass and steel with security that would make Fort Knox jealous. "Top floor," the driver grunted, handing her off to another suited man in the lobby. The elevator rose smoothly, opening directly into a penthouse that took Lucia's breath away. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the entire city. Modern art hung on the walls, pieces she recognized from her art history classes before she dropped out to work. Everything was sleek, expensive, and cold. A woman in her 50s, dressed in an elegant black suit, appeared from a hallway. "Miss Fernandez, I'm Agnes, Mr. Lombardi's head of staff. Thank you for coming on such short notice." "Of course." Lucia clutched her bag, suddenly aware of how shabby she must look. Agnes's eyes were kind, but assessing. "The position is live-in. You'd have your own suite, full benefits, salary of $75,000 annually. Mr. Lombardi values privacy and discretion above all else. Can you provide that?" 75,000. Lucia's current salary, her former salary, had been barely 22. "Yes, absolutely." "Good." Agnes glanced at Lucia's midsection, and Lucia's heart sank. But the older woman simply smiled. Mr. Lombardi doesn't discriminate. Your personal situation is your own business as long as you can perform your duties. When can you start?
Today.
Lucia breathed.
Perfect.
Mr. Lombardi is out of the country, but returns tonight. Let me show you your quarters. The quarters were larger than Lucia's entire apartment. A bedroom, bathroom, and sitting area with its own entrance. The bed was enormous, covered in soft linens. The bathroom had a soaking tub and a shower with 6 different heads. This is too much, Lucia whispered. Agnes patted her arm. You'll earn it, dear. Mr. Lombardi has exacting standards, but he's fair and he protects those who work for him. You'll be safe here. The word safe hit Lucia hard. She hadn't felt safe in months. Not since she'd realized she was pregnant and alone. Not since she'd started jumping at shadows, wondering if the father would somehow find out. And what she didn't even know his last name. That night, after Agnes had left her with a stack of instructions and schedules, Lucia stood at the window looking out at the city lights. Her hand rested on her small bump. We're going to be okay, she whispered to her baby. This is our fresh start. The elevator chimed. Lucia turned, expecting Agnes. Instead, a man stepped into the penthouse, flanked by 2 bodyguards. He was tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a black suit that probably cost more than a car. Dark hair with silver at the temples, a strong jaw, and eyes that were sharp and cold as a winter storm. Those eyes. Lucia's world tilted. She knew those eyes. She'd looked into them 6 months ago as he'd whispered her name, as he'd traced the curve of her hip, as he'd promised her one perfect night away from reality. Gabriel Lombardi stopped mid-step, his gaze locking on her face, the color drained from his features. You, he breathed. If you're enjoying this story and want to see what happens next, please subscribe to our channel and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Your support means everything to us as we continue bringing these stories to life. Time seemed to freeze. Lucia couldn't move, couldn't speak. The man she'd spent one incredible night with, the man whose child she carried, the man she'd thought she'd never see again, was the most dangerous mafia boss in New York City. His eyes traveled down to her belly, now obvious in the thin t-shirt she'd changed into. She watched the realization hit him, the timeline, the dates, the impossible coincidence. How did you find me? His voice was dangerous now, all warmth gone. Did someone send you? Is this some kind of setup? I didn't know. Lucia stammered, backing up against the window. They called me. I needed a job. I didn't know it was you. Gabriel moved forward like a predator. You expect me to believe that? After everything, that this is just coincidence? I'm telling the truth. Her voice cracked. I didn't even know your last name. He stopped inches from her, and she could feel the heat radiating from his body. Up close, she could see the muscle flexing in his jaw, the way his hands had curled into fists at his sides. Then his eyes fell to her necklace, the delicate gold compass he'd left for her. His hand shot out, not touching her, but pointing at the pendant. You kept it. It was all I had, she whispered from that night. Something flickered across his face, surprise, confusion, maybe something softer, but it vanished quickly, replaced by cold calculation. Agnes, he barked. The older woman appeared instantly from wherever she'd been waiting. Yes, sir. Miss Fernandez will be staying, but she's to have a full security detail. No one in or out without my approval, and I want a complete background check by morning. Sir, I've already do it again. His eyes never left Lucia's face. Everything. I want to know every person she's ever spoken to, every place she's ever been. Lucia's fear turned to anger. I'm not a criminal. I'm just trying to survive. Then you have nothing to worry about. He turned away, dismissing her. Agnes, show Miss Fernandez back to her room. We'll discuss her situation in the morning. As Agnes gently guided her away, Lucia looked back to see Gabriel standing at the window, his shoulders rigid, one hand pressed against the glass. She just walked into the lion's den, and the lion had just realized she was carrying his cub. What will Gabriel do when he learns the truth. Can Lucia trust the most dangerous man in New York with her secret? The answers will shock you. Keep watching to find out what happens when the Mafia boss discovers he's going to be a father. Lucia didn't sleep. She spent the night pacing her luxurious room, one hand on her belly, trying to process the impossibility of her situation. The man she'd met 6 months ago at the Gunther Adolf bar, charming, intense, making her feel alive for the first time since her mother's diagnosis, was Gabriel Lombardi. She'd known he was wealthy. The way he'd ordered the most expensive wine without looking at the price, the presidential suite he'd taken her to. But she'd assumed he was a businessman, maybe old money, not this. At 6 a.m., a soft knock came at her door. Agnes entered with a tray of breakfast. Fruit, yogurt, whole grain toast. Mr. Lombardi requests your presence in his office at 8 o'clock. I suggest you eat and dress appropriately. What does he want? Lucia's voice was small. Agnes's expression softened. To talk, dear, just to talk. He's not going to hurt you. How do you know? Because in the 20 years I've worked for him, I've never seen him look at someone the way he looked at you last night. Agnes set down the tray like he'd seen a ghost or an answer to a prayer. At exactly 8 o'clock, Lucia stood outside the dark wood doors of Gabriel's office, her heart hammering. She'd chosen a simple black dress that didn't cling to her belly, pulled her natural curls into a neat bun. The necklace, his necklace, was hidden beneath her collar. Come in, his voice called before she could knock. The office was all dark wood and leather, shelves lined with books in multiple languages. Gabriel sat behind an enormous desk, but he stood when she entered, a gesture of courtesy that surprised her. Sit. He gestured to the chair across from him. Lucia sat, keeping her spine straight, refusing to show fear. Gabriel studied her for a long moment. In the morning light, she could see he looked tired, like he hadn't slept either. The background check came back clean. Lucia Athena Fernandez, 26 years old, born in the Bronx, mother deceased 8 months ago from cancer. No father listed on your birth certificate. You dropped out of NYU after 1 year, when your mother got sick. You've worked as a housekeeper ever since, supporting her through treatment. He paused. No criminal record. No connections to any of my rivals or enemies. You're exactly what you appear to be, a woman who's had a hard life and is trying to survive. Lucia's throat tightened at the clinical recitation of her struggles. Is that all I am to you? A background check? His jaw flexed. That night at the Gunther.
Tell me about it.
Why you were there.
Tell me anyway.
Lucia took a deep breath. I just paid the last of my mother's funeral expenses. I had $50 left to my name. I went to that bar because I wanted to feel like a different person for one night. Someone who wore a nice dress and drank expensive wine and didn't have to worry about rent. She met his eyes. You bought me a drink. We talked for hours. You never told me your last name. You told me you were in acquisitions, which I guess wasn't a complete lie. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. You told me you were studying art history. I was before. You were brilliant. The way you talked about Caravaggio's use of light and shadow. I could have listened to you all night. The memory made her chest ache. You said you'd never met anyone who saw the world the way I did. You made me feel special. You were special. His voice dropped lower. You are special. Silence stretched between them, heavy with everything unsaid. The baby, Gabriel finally said. It's mine. Yes. Why didn't you contact me? Try to find me. Lucia laughed bitterly.
How?
You left a necklace and a note? No phone number, no last name, nothing. I tried searching, but do you know how many Gabriels there are in New York? I didn't even know what you really did for a living. Would it have mattered? His eyes were intense if you'd known who I was. Yes, she said honestly. I would have run as far and as fast as I could. He flinched as if she'd struck him. And now I'm trapped here, aren't I? You said no one in or out without your approval. Gabriel stood, moving to the window with his back to her. His shoulders were tense beneath his perfectly tailored suit. You're not trapped. You're protected. There's a difference. Protected from what? He turned to face her, and the look in his eyes made her blood run cold. From the 20 other families who would love to get their hands on something I care about, from the FBI who would use you to get to me, from the people who've been trying to kill me for the last decade. He took a step toward her. You're carrying my child, Lucia. That makes you the most valuable target in this entire city. The reality of it hit her like a physical blow. She pressed a hand to her stomach instinctively. Gabriel's expression softened slightly. How far along are you? 4.5 months. And you've been doing this alone, working multiple jobs, no prenatal care, living in. He glanced at the report on his desk. A studio apartment with mold in the bathroom. Shame burned her cheeks. I was doing the best I could. I know. He moved closer and she caught his scent, expensive cologne, and something uniquely him that made her body remember things it shouldn't. That ends now. You'll have the best doctors, everything you need, both of you. I don't want your money. Too bad you're getting it anyway. His voice was firm. And you're staying here where I can keep you safe. So I am a prisoner. You're under my protection. Learn the difference. Lucia stood, anger flaring. I didn't ask for this. I didn't ask to fall into bed with as she caught herself. Say it. He challenged, moving closer.
A what?
A criminal? A monster? A stranger? She shot back. I don't know you, Gabriel. I knew the man in that bar for one night. I don't know this version of you at all.
They were inches apart now.
The tension between them electric and dangerous. Gabriel's hand came up slowly, giving her time to move away, but she found herself frozen as his fingers brushed her cheek. Then get to know me, he said softly. We have time, and we're going to be parents together. Whether either of us planned for it or not, the baby chose that moment to kick hard enough that Lucia gasped. Gabriel's eyes widened. Was that? Without thinking, she grabbed his hand and pressed it to her belly. Wait for it. The baby's active in the mornings. Another kick right against his palm. Gabriel's face transformed. The hard, dangerous Mafia boss vanishing, replaced by something vulnerable and a ruck. That's his voice cracked. That's my child.
Yes.
He dropped to his knees in front of her, his hand still on her stomach, his forehead resting against her belly. I swear to you, he whispered. And she wasn't sure if he was talking to her or the baby. Nothing will ever hurt either of you. I will burn down this entire city before I let anyone touch you. Lucia's hand came up to touch his hair, an intimate gesture she couldn't stop herself from making. Gabriel. A loud crash from outside the office made them both freeze. Gabriel was on his feet instantly, positioning himself between Lucia and the door, one hand reaching inside his jacket. The door burst open. A man in a dark suit, blood streaming from a cut on his temple, stumbled in. Boss, we've got a problem. The Montenegros know about the girl. They're planning a move tonight. Gabriel's face went hard as granite. He turned to Lucia, and she saw something in his eyes she'd never seen before. Genuine fear. Get her to the safe room now. The Montenegros are coming, and Lucia is their target. Will Gabriel's protection be enough to keep her and their unborn child safe? The next moments will change everything. Don't stop watching now. The safe room was hidden behind a bookshelf in Gabriel's bedroom, a space she hadn't been in before. Agnes rushed Lucia inside while the penthouse erupted into controlled chaos. Men in suits appeared from nowhere, all armed, all moving with military precision. You'll be safe here, Agnes assured her, though the older woman's hands trembled slightly as she set up water bottles and snacks on the small table. The walls are reinforced steel. Nothing can get through. What's happening? Who are the Montenegros? Agnes's lips pressed into a thin line. Rival family. They've been trying to take over Mr. Lombardi's territory for years. If they know about you. She didn't finish the sentence. Through the small monitor mounted on the wall, Lucia could see Gabriel in his office, surrounded by his men, speaking in rapid Italian. The language rolled off his tongue naturally, and even through the screen she could see the authority he commanded. These men would die for him without question. How long have you worked for him? Lucia asked, needing the distraction. 20 years since his father died, and Gabriel took over. Agnes sat beside her. I watched him transform from an angry young man into the leader he is today. He's not what people think. You know, he has rules, lines he won't cross. He's still a criminal. He's a protector. There's a difference. The neighborhood where you grew up, the Bronx, it used to be a war zone. Gabriel brokered peace between the gangs, brought in legitimate businesses, created jobs. He protects people who can't protect themselves. Agnes looked at her pointedly, like, he's protecting you now. Before Lucia could respond, alarms blared throughout the penthouse. On the monitor, she watched Gabriel's expression harden. He barked orders and men scattered. Then he looked directly at the camera, at her. Lucia, if you can hear me, I need you to listen carefully. His voice came through the speaker, calm but urgent. We have incoming. My men will handle it, but I need you to stay exactly where you are. No matter what you hear, do not leave that room until I come for you myself. Do you understand? Lucia moved closer to the screen. Gabriel, promise me. The desperation in his voice shocked her. Promise me you'll stay safe. I promise. He nodded once, then disappeared from the screen. The next 20 minutes were the longest of Lucia's life. She could hear muffled sounds, shouts, crashes, what might have been gunfire. Agnes held her hand, praying softly in Spanish. Lucia found herself praying, too. Words she hadn't spoken since her mother's funeral. Please keep him safe. Please keep us all safe. Then silence. It stretched on, terrifying in its completeness. Lucia's heart hammered against her ribs. The baby kicked frantically as if sensing her mother's fear. Finally, the door unlocked. Gabriel stood in the doorway, his suit jacket gone, his white shirt torn and bloodied, but he was alive. Are you hurt? Lucia rushed to him before she could stop herself, her hands hovering over the blood stains. Not my blood. His hands cupped her face, his eyes scanning her frantically. Are you okay, the baby? We're fine. What happened? They're dealt with. His jaw was tight. But they know about you now. They know you're pregnant. That changes everything. Agnes quietly excused herself, leaving them alone in the safe room. Gabriel sank onto the small couch, suddenly looking exhausted. I've spent 15 years building an empire that keeps people safe. I've made enemies, yes, but I've also made it possible for families like yours to live without fear. And now, he looked up at her with haunted eyes. Now you're a target because of me. Lucia sat beside him close enough that their knees touched. This isn't your fault. It absolutely is my fault if I'd known that night, if I'd gotten your number, found you earlier. Then what? You would have what? Sent me away. Hid me somewhere. I would have protected you from day one. I don't need protection. She paused, realizing the truth even as she spoke it. I need someone who sees me as more than just a responsibility, more than just the mother of your child. Gabriel turned to face her fully. His hand came up to cup her cheek, his thumb brushing across her cheekbone with surprising gentleness for a man who'd just been in a fight. I see you, Lucia. I've seen you since that first night when you told me about how Artemisia Gentiles used her art to reclaim her power after trauma. You were so passionate, so alive. You made me remember what it felt like to be more than this. He gestured vaguely at himself. More than the Lombardiere, the boss, the monster everyone expects. You're not a monster. I've done monstrous things to protect people. Agnes told me. The Bronx, the peace you brokered, the jobs you created. He laughed bitterly. Don't paint me as a hero. I'm not. Neither am I. I'm just a girl who got pregnant after a one-night stand and got lucky that the father turned out to be someone who can actually help. This is more than luck, Lucia. This is he stopped, seeming to struggle with the words. That night, I wasn't supposed to be at that bar. I just finalized a deal that should have killed me. The Calabrese family had set up a hit. I only survived because I changed my routine at the last second. I ended up at the Gunther to lay low, and there you were. Her breath caught. So, we shouldn't have met at all. But we did, and now there's a child. My child. His hand moved down to her belly, spreading wide over the curve. I don't believe in fate, but this feels like something more than coincidence. The baby kicked against his palm as if agreeing. Gabriel's expression softened in a way Lucia had never seen. When my father died, he told me I'd never have a family, that this life doesn't allow for love, for children, for anything real. I believed him for 15 years. He looked into her eyes. I don't want to believe him anymore. Gabriel. Lucia's heart was racing. What are you saying? I'm saying stay. Not because I'm forcing you, but because you want to get to know me. The real me, not the man in the bar, not the boss, but everything in between. His voice dropped to barely above a whisper. Let me show you that I can be the man you deserve, the father our child deserves. Before she could answer, another alarm blared. Gabriel was on his feet instantly, fury replacing the vulnerability.
What now?
A young man burst into the room. Boss, it's not an attack. It's a fire. The building 3 blocks over. The women's shelter. It's burning. Gabriel's face went pale. The Montenegro shelter.
No, sir.
The independent one, St. Catherine's. There are women and children inside. Lucia stood, her heart lurching. We have to help them.
Lucia.
No. Gabriel started. Those are innocent people. Children. She grabbed his arm. You said you protect people. Prove it. Something flickered in his eyes. Respect, maybe, or recognition. He turned to his man. Get every available person to that building. I want firefighters, ambulances, whatever they need, and set up the grand ballroom at the Lombardi Hotel. We're housing them there until they have somewhere safe to go on it, boss. Gabriel looked back at Lucia. You stay here. I mean it this time. The hell I will. I'm coming with you. Absolutely not. I was a candy striper in high school. I know first aid. You need all the help you can get. She met his gaze steadily. And you're not my keeper, Gabriel. You're the father of my child, but you don't own me. A slow smile spread across his face. No, I don't. But I'm going to do everything in my power to earn you. 20 minutes later, Lucia found herself at the scene of the fire, helping to organize the dazed women and children who'd made it out. Gabriel was everywhere at once, directing his men, coordinating with firefighters, personally carrying out 2 children who'd been trapped on the second floor. She watched him emerge from the smoke, a child cradled in each arm, his face covered in soot. He handed them off to paramedics, then turned immediately back toward the building. Sir, the structure is not stable, a firefighter shouted. There's still someone on the 3rd floor. I heard crying. Boss, no. One of his men grabbed his arm. Gabriel shook him off. I'm not leaving a child to die. Before anyone could stop him, he disappeared back into the flames. Lucia's heart stopped. Time seemed to slow as she stared at the burning building, imagining Gabriel trapped inside, the father of her child dying before she'd even had the chance to really know him. Then he emerged, carrying a little girl who couldn't have been more than 5. She was crying, clinging to his neck. He stumbled, and Lucia rushed forward without thinking, helping to support him as they moved away from the building. Seconds after they cleared the danger zone, a section of the building collapsed exactly where Gabriel had been standing. He handed the girl to a paramedic, then turned to Lucia. His hands gripped her shoulders. Are you crazy? You're pregnant. You shouldn't be anywhere near. You ran into a burning building. She shouted back. You could have died. There was a child. And there's a child right here. She pressed his hand to her belly. Our child, who needs a father. They stared at each other, both breathing hard, both covered in ash and soot. Around them, emergency personnel worked, but Lucia barely noticed. All she could see was Gabriel, this complicated, dangerous, heroic man who'd risked his life without hesitation for a child he didn't even know. Lucia, he said softly.
I'm sorry.
I didn't think. You never think. You just act. Her voice broke. You just make me feel things I'm not supposed to feel. His thumb brushed away a tear she hadn't realized she'd shed, leaving a clean streak on her face. What kind of things? Things that are going to break my heart. Because this can't work. We can't work. Say it. You're Gabriel Lombardi, and I'm nobody. His grip on her tightened. You're not nobody. You're the woman who's been living in my head for 6 months. You're the mother of my child. He searched for words. You're mine, Lucia, and I don't care what I have to do or what I have to change. I'm keeping you safe, both of you. The baby kicked hard right against where his hand rested.
See?
Gabriel's voice was rough with emotion. Even the baby agrees. Despite everything, the danger, the fear, The impossibility of their situation, Lucia laughed. You're impossible. I'm determined. There's a difference. He pulled her closer, his forehead touching hers. Give me a chance. Please, let me prove I can be what you need. Before she could answer, Agnes appeared with blankets. Come on, you two. You need to get checked out by the paramedics, and Lucia needs to rest. Think of the baby. As they walked toward the ambulance, Gabriel's arm around her shoulders, Lucia felt something shift inside her. This dangerous, complicated man had just risked his life for strangers. He'd organized housing for families who'd lost everything. He was trying so hard to be more than what he was born to be. Maybe, just maybe, they had a chance. Gabriel risked everything to save innocent lives. But the biggest threat is still coming. What happens when Lucia realizes just how deep the danger goes? Stay with us to see if their love can survive what's next. The doctor at the hospital confirmed what Lucia already knew. The baby was fine. She was fine, but she needed rest and should avoid stressful situations. Good luck with that last part, Gabriel muttered as they returned to the penthouse in the early morning hours. Lucia was too exhausted to argue. Agnes had prepared a bath for her, and she soaked in the massive tub, letting the warm water ease her aching muscles. When she emerged, she found Gabriel sitting on the couch in her room, his head in his hands. You should be resting, too, she said softly. He looked up, and in the lamplight, she could see the exhaustion etched into his features. He'd changed into a clean shirt, but there was still soot in his hair, and his hands bore small burns from carrying those children. I can't sleep. Every time I close my eyes, I see that building collapsing. I see you standing there pregnant with my child. And I realize how close I came to losing both of you today. Lucia sat beside him. But you didn't. We're here. We're safe for now. His voice was hollow. But the Montenegros won't stop. Not now that they know about you. And there are others. The Russians, the Colombians, every family that wants to weaken my position. You and this baby are the perfect leverage. So what do we do? He turned to her, and the intensity in his gaze made her breath catch. I marry you publicly. I make it clear that you and this child are under my full protection. That any move against you is a move against me and everything I control. Lucia's heart stuttered. That's Gabriel. That's not a real solution. Marriage should be about love. His hand cupped her cheek. Ask me what I felt when I walked into that bar 6 months ago and saw you sitting there. So beautiful it hurt to look at you. Ask me what I felt when you started talking about art with such passion that I forgot to maintain my guard. Ask me what I felt every day since, wondering if I'd ever find you again. Gabriel. I looked for you, Lucia, for months. I had every resource at my disposal, and I couldn't find you because you'd paid cash for the room. Used a nickname at the bar. You were like a ghost, a dream I couldn't quite hold on to. His thumb brushed her lips. And then you appeared in my home, carrying my child, wearing the necklace I left you, and I knew this wasn't coincidence. This was fate, giving me a second chance. You don't believe in fate. You said so yourself. I didn't until you. The baby kicked, as if reminding them both of what was at stake. I'm not asking you to love me, Gabriel continued. Not yet. I'm asking you to trust me, to let me protect you the only way I know how. We'll have a proper wedding, a proper marriage, and if you decide after the baby's born that you can't do this, that you can't love a man like me, then we'll figure something else out. But right now, this is the best way to keep you both safe. That's not fair to you. He laughed, but it was bitter. Lucia, I'm 38 years old. I've accepted that I'd never have this, never have a family, never have someone look at me like I'm more than a monster. If all I get is a few months of pretending, of playing house with you and our child, that's more than I ever expected to have. Tears burned Lucia's eyes. You're not a monster. I've killed people, Lucia. I've ordered hits, destroyed lives, done things that would horrify you. To protect innocent people, to keep peace, to don't make excuses for me. I'm not. I'm trying to understand you. She took his scarred hands in hers. You ran into a burning building today. You personally saved 3 children. You organized housing for 30 families who lost everything. You treat Agnes with respect. You pay your staff fairly. And you. Her voice softened. You looked at my belly like our baby was the most precious thing you'd ever seen. Gabriel's eyes glistened. It is. You both are. Then stop pushing me away by pretending to be something you're not. You're not just a monster, Gabriel. You're complicated and dangerous and sometimes terrifying, but you're also capable of incredible kindness. I see both sides, and I'm not running. You should. Too late. I'm exhausted, pregnant, and your couch is more comfortable than anywhere I've slept in years. She leaned against him, her head on his shoulder. Besides, the baby likes you. Kicks every time you're near. His arm came around her carefully. How do you know? Because the baby has taste, recognizes its father. They sat in silence for a long moment. Gabriel's hand moved to her belly, and true to her word, the baby kicked enthusiastically. I want to marry you, Lucia heard herself say. Not because I'm scared or because you're forcing me, but because I want our child to have a family. And because she took a breath. Because I want to see if that man from the bar, the one who made me laugh and feel seen, is still in there somewhere.
He is.
He's just buried under a lot of blood and bad decisions. Then help me find him. Gabriel pulled back to look at her. Lucia, if we do this, there's no going back. You'll be Mrs. Lombardi. You'll be part of this world. It's not easy. It's not safe. And it's definitely not what you signed up for. I didn't sign up for any of this, but here we are. She touched his face, feeling the stubble on his jaw.
Teach me.
Show me how to survive in your world, and I'll show you how to live in mine.
Deal.
He leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull away. But Lucia didn't want to pull away. When his lips touched hers, it was gentle, almost reverent, so different from the passionate kisses they'd shared that night 6 months ago. This was a promise, a beginning. The kiss deepened, and Lucia felt herself melting into him, her hands sliding up to tangle in his hair. He groaned softly, pulling her closer, one hand cradling the back of her head while the other rested protectively on her belly. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Gabriel rested his forehead against hers. I'm going to spend every day earning you, he whispered. Every single day. The wedding happened 3 days later in the penthouse with only Agnes, Gabriel's lawyer, and a judge in attendance. Lucia wore a simple white dress that Agnes had somehow produced overnight, altered to fit over her growing belly. Gabriel wore a dark suit, and when he saw her, his eyes filled with an emotion so raw it made her chest ache. You're beautiful, he breathed, taking her hands. I'm 5 months pregnant and wearing the only white dress that would fit. You're perfect. The ceremony was short. When the judge pronounced them husband and wife, Gabriel kissed her with a gentleness that belied his fearsome reputation. His hands shook slightly as he slipped the wedding band onto her finger. A simple platinum band engraved with tiny compasses. So you always find your way home, he murmured. That night, Gabriel insisted Lucia sleep in his bed. Their bed now while he took the couch. You're my husband, she protested. You can sleep in your own bed. I don't want to rush you. This is already overwhelming enough, Gabriel. She patted the space beside her. I'm not made of glass, and I'm lonely. Stay with me. He hesitated, then climbed into bed, maintaining a careful distance. But within minutes, Lucia had moved closer, seeking his warmth. His arm came around her, pulling her back against his chest, his hand splaying protectively over her belly. Thank you, he whispered into her hair. For what? For giving me this? For taking a chance on me? His voice cracked, for making me feel human again. Lucia laced her fingers through his. Thank you for saving me, not just from the Montenegros, but from facing this alone, for wanting our baby. For I love you, he interrupted. I know you're not ready to hear it, and I know I don't deserve to say it, but I need you to know. I've loved you since that first night. I'll love you until the day I die. Tears slid down Lucia's cheeks. Gabriel, you don't have to say it back. Just know it's true. She turned in his arms, looking up at him in the darkness. Ask me again in a few months when you've proven you can be the man I need when we figured out how to make this crazy thing work. Ask me then. He smiled, and it transformed his face. I will every day if I have to. Good. She kissed him softly. Now go to sleep. Your son or daughter is kicking my ribs, and one of us should get some rest. Son or daughter? His hand moved over her belly. Which do you think? Girl? Definitely a girl. She's stubborn like her father. Gabriel laughed, the sound rumbling in his chest. God help me if she's anything like you. They fell asleep tangled together. Gabriel's hand never leaving her belly. Lucia's head tucked under his chin. Outside the city continued its dangerous dance. But inside that room, for the first time in either of their lives, they both felt safe. They're married now, but the real test is just beginning. Can love survive in the world of the Mafia? Will their family have a happy ending? The conclusion will leave you breathless. Keep watching. 6 months later, Lucia stood at the window of the penthouse nursery, cradling her 3-month-old daughter, Olivia Athena Lombardi. The baby had her father's dark hair and her mother's warm brown skin, and she was already showing signs of having both parents' stubborn streak. She's awake again. Gabriel's voice came from the doorway. Lucia turned, smiling at her husband. In 6 months of marriage, he'd changed. The hard edges had softened, though he was still the most dangerous man in New York. But at home with her and Olivia, he was just Gabriel, the man who sang off-key lullabies and changed diapers without complaint, and looked at his daughter like she'd hung the moon. She wanted her daddy, Lucia said. Gabriel crossed the room, his hands gentle as he took Olivia from her arms. The baby immediately settled, making soft cooing sounds. She's got you wrapped around her tiny finger, Lucia teased.
Completely.
He kissed Olivia's forehead just like her mother. These past months hadn't been easy. There had been threats, close calls, moments when Lucia wondered if she'd made the right choice. But there had also been laughter, tenderness, and a love that grew stronger every day. Gabriel had been true to his word. He'd reorganized his business, moving away from the more violent aspects of his work. He'd started legitimate ventures, created more community programs. He was still powerful, still dangerous, but he was trying to be better for her, for Olivia. And Lucia had learned to navigate his world. She'd made friends with the wives of his associates, started teaching art classes to children in the neighborhood, found ways to use her position to help others. She wasn't just Gabriel Lombardi's wife. She was Lucia Lombardi, a woman in her own right. Do you remember what I asked you to ask me again? She said softly. Gabriel looked up from Olivia, his eyes meeting hers every day for the last 6 months, but I've been waiting for you to be ready. I'm ready now. She stepped closer, her hand on his chest where she could feel his heart beating. Ask me. He shifted Olivia to one arm, his free hand cupping Lucia's face. Lucia Athena Lombardi, do you love me? Yes. Her voice was steady. Sure, I love you, Gabriel. Not the mafia boss. Not the dangerous man everyone fears, but you. The man who cries when he holds his daughter. The man who still leaves me notes with terrible poetry. The man who's trying so hard to be better, to be worthy. She kissed him softly. I love you. His eyes glistened with unshed tears. I love you, too, more than I ever thought possible. You and Olivia. You're my whole world. Olivia chose that moment to grab her father's nose, making them both laugh. She knows she's the princess of this empire, Gabriel said, gently extricating his nose from tiny, surprisingly strong fingers. She is, and she's going to grow up knowing she's loved, protected, and free to be whoever she wants to be. Lucia looked at her daughter, then at her husband. We're going to give her everything we never had. Safety, love, and choices. We will, I promise. As the sun set over New York City, the Lombardi family stood together in their penthouse, a small island of love and peace in a dangerous world. It wasn't the life Lucia had planned. It wasn't the traditional fairy tale, but it was theirs, and it was perfect. Thank you all for following this story. If you enjoyed it, please write in the comments where you're watching from. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video as your support is important for me to continue creating content.